Hello, and thank you again for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about children, our precious resources, and I'm going to talk from a program that I ran in Pittsburgh at LaRoche College called Merging the Classics. Merging the Classics was a music program that blended elements of jazz and the classics. I brought that program to the college because my children had attended two Catholic schools, one in the city and one in the suburbs. And I wanted to bring these two schools together, and I wanted the school's children who were studying music to participate so that we could begin to teach them not just to compose music, but to compose music that had elements of jazz and the classics. And by doing so, because the students from the urban Catholic school were 100% African American, and the children from the suburban school were about 95% white, subliminally, by coming together around this universal theme of music, my hope was that the children would begin to see how their similarities outweighed their differences. So, in terms of the musicians who ran the program, one was Doug Lundeen, who was classically trained, and the other was Harold Young, who was jazz trained. So the first task was to take the students on a community tour where they could begin to see what Pittsburgh was like through its neighborhoods. What was interesting was that as we went through certain communities, because the communities were rich in ethnicity, there was Polish Hills, there was Squirrel Hill, where the Jewish population lived, there was Homewood, which was predominantly black. The children were beginning to see, actually without speaking, how differences were within each of those communities. In Polish Hills, the smells. In Homewood, stark contrast from where they lived in the North Hills with respect to housing and cityscape. So all of that was woven into how they began to use their five senses on the bus tour to define these communities musically. We went back to the college after the tour, and the musicians began to help the students shape their compositions around the notes that they wrote down as we went through the different communities. It all culminated with a concert. It was a concert that was widely attended by their parents, their other relatives, our school teachers, our principals from the schools, as well as the college president. And the parents were so impressed by what the children were able to accomplish from the beginning to the end of the program. And the program ran under my direction for 3 years. And then I left, I relocated to Maryland, and the music teacher at the suburban Catholic school took over the program. I want to add that during the community tour, one of the rules was that we could not get off the bus. This was something that was very important to the students' parents from the white school, predominantly white school, because they were not familiar with all of the neighborhoods. They did not feel it's safe for the children to get off of the bus in certain communities that were unfamiliar to them, namely the black communities. Well, I did not pass judgment because I understood their point of view, although I felt that students were missing something, particularly the white students who, when we went through the Hill District, which was rich in jazz legacy through the Crawford Grill, which was a club where all of the famous jazz musicians stopped at when in Pittsburgh, and where many of the jazz musicians from Pittsburgh who became great started at, the white students wanted to get off the bus. Every tour we did, they wanted to get off the bus, but the rule was they could not. Well, I got an email from the music teacher who told me the students got off the bus. That was the subject line on her email. And I started crying because this was 4 or 5 years later. The students of this class of musicians finally got off the bus. And she said that there had been such a buzz about the success of the program in merging around music and, by example, connecting students who would not ordinarily meet each other, that these parents of this new group wanted their children to experience the Crawford Grill. So they got off the bus, and Harold arranged a jam session with his musicians, and the black and white students played with the jam session, and they ate pizza. So what does all of this mean? Well, children are our most valuable resource, and they come through us, but they do not belong to us. They belong to this world that they will one day inherit. And so we as parents and as influencers, I feel, should allow them to cross those bridges, to merge across differences. Because with all that's going on in our world today, and with America being the most diverse country in this world, we're going to need our children to make these major decisions that will bring forth a better quality of life for them and for the generations to follow them.